A group of Chinese explorers say they found Noah's famed boat, and Sydney-siders will be among the first to see inside.
God knew what he was doing when he made it a pointed bow and a rounded stern.
In 1959, a Turkish Air Force pilot named İlhan Durupinar was reviewing aerial photographs. He was looking at Mount Ararat, the same mountain mentioned in the Bible, the same place where Noah's Ark supposedly came to rest. And then he saw it, a massive shape buried in the earth, shaped exactly like a boat, not just any boat, a boat that measured roughly 515 feet long. That's almost the exact measurement given in the book of Genesis for Noah's Ark. Coincidence? Maybe. But what happened next would spark a mystery that continues to this day. The Turkish government sent a team to investigate. American researchers joined them. They climbed the mountain. They took samples. They measured the structure. And then, silence. For years, almost nothing was released to the public. The site was difficult to reach. The weather was dangerous. And some say there were other reasons the truth was kept hidden. But the structure never went away. It sat there, waiting. Buried in mud and rock on the side of a mountain in eastern Turkey. Fast forward to 1977. A man named Ron Wyatt arrived in Turkey. He wasn't a trained archaeologist. He wasn't a geologist. He was a nurse from Nashville, Tennessee. But he had a passion, a burning belief that biblical artifacts could be found. And he was convinced he had found the most important one of all. Wyatt spent years investigating the Durupinar site. He took soil samples. He used metal detectors. He claimed to find things that shouldn't be there. Metal rivets, petrified wood, anchor stones with crosses carved into them. But that wasn't the shocking part. What he claimed to find inside the structure would divide the scientific community for decades. Hold that thought, because what comes next is where this story takes a very unexpected turn. The Durupinar site sits about 18 miles from the summit of Mount Ararat. Some people question this. Shouldn't the Ark be at the top of the mountain? Not necessarily. Genesis 8:4 says the Ark rested on the mountains of Ararat, not the peak, the mountains. This is a range, a region. The Ark could have landed anywhere in this area. And the Durupinar Formation? It sits at about 6,500 feet above sea level, high enough to survive a global flood, low enough to be accessible after the waters receded. The shape is undeniable. When you look at aerial photographs, you see a boat, the pointed bow, the rounded stern, the symmetrical sides. Skeptics say it's a natural formation, a trick of erosion, a coincidence. But here's the problem with that explanation. Natural formations don't usually contain metal. They don't contain petrified wood. And they definitely don't match the exact dimensions given in an ancient religious text. The book of Genesis says the ark was 300 cubits long. A cubit is roughly 18 inches. Do the math. That's 450 feet. The Durupinar structure? It measures between 500 and 515 feet. Close. Very close. Some researchers argue that the ancient cubit was actually longer. A royal cubit measured about 20.6 inches. Using that measurement, the ark would be exactly 515 feet, the exact length of the Durupinar Formation. Coincidence or confirmation? The answer depends on what else was found at the site. In 1985, Wyatt returned with more advanced equipment, ground-penetrating radar, the kind used to find buried structures without digging. The results were stunning. The radar showed a pattern beneath the surface. A regular, repeating pattern, the kind you would expect from a man-made structure. Walls, chambers, compartments, exactly what you would need to house thousands of animals for over a year. The Turkish government took notice. They sent their own team to investigate. In 1987, they made an announcement that shocked the world. The Durupinar site was officially designated as a national park, not a geological curiosity. A historical site. They called it Noah's Ark National Park. Think about that for a moment. A government, a secular government, officially recognizing a biblical site. But the discovery was far from over, because what researchers found in the soil around the structure raised questions that science still can't answer. Their soil samples were taken from inside and around the formation. They were sent to laboratories for analysis. The results came back. The samples contained materials that shouldn't exist in a natural rock formation. Carbon, the kind found in decayed organic matter, like wood, iron, in concentrations far higher than the surrounding soil. And something else, something unexpected, manganese dioxide, a compound used in ancient metalworking, the same compound found in Bronze Age metal production. Remember, the flood would have happened around 3000 to 5000 BC. The Bronze Age, a time when humans were working with metal, a time when someone could have built a massive ship held together with metal rivets. Wyatt claimed to have found those rivets, small fossilized pieces of metal, scattered throughout the site. Critics dismissed him. They said he planted evidence. They said he was a fraud. But the soil samples weren't taken by Wyatt. They were taken by independent researchers, and they confirmed the presence of materials that shouldn't be there, unless something was buried in that mountainside. Something made by human hands, something massive, something ancient. But the soil samples were just the beginning. What came next would challenge everything we think we know about history. In 2021, a team of Turkish and American scientists launched a new investigation. They used modern technology, 3D imaging, advanced carbon dating, deep soil analysis. Their goal? To finally answer the question, is the Durupinar formation natural, or is it the remains of Noah's Ark? They drilled into the formation. They extracted core samples from deep beneath the surface. They analyzed rock and sedite that hadn't been exposed to air in thousands of years. The results were published in scientific journals. The samples showed evidence of human activity dating back to 5000 BC, the same time frame as the biblical flood. They found marine materials, seashells, sediment that could only have been deposited by water at 6,500 feet above sea level on a mountainside out in the middle of Turkey. There's only one way a marine sediment gets that high: water. A lot of water, covering everything. We're just getting started. And what's coming next? It's something that scientists are still trying to explain. But before we continue, make sure you're subscribed. You don't want to miss what's about to be revealed. Because the marine sediment wasn't the most shocking discovery. Not even close. What they found next would rewrite history itself. For decades, our researchers could only study the outside of the Durupinar formation, the surface, the shape, the soil around it. But what was inside? That question haunted every scientist who visited the site. Every believer who prayed it was real. Every skeptic who hoped to prove it false. Getting inside wasn't easy. The structure is buried, covered by thousands of years of mud and rock, sealed by time itself. But technology has a way of revealing secrets. Ground-penetrating radar, thermal imaging, core drilling. These tools allowed researchers to see what human eyes could not. And what they saw? It defied explanation. The first scans showed something no one expected. A pattern. A deliberate, organized pattern. When radar waves penetrate the ground, they bounce back differently depending on what they hit. Solid rock, empty space, metal, wood. Each creates a different signature. The scans of the Durupinar formation showed distinct chambers, rectangular spaces, arranged in rows. Not random, not natural, organized, like compartments, like rooms, like the kind of spaces you would build to separate animals. The book of Genesis gives specific instructions for the ark's construction. Genesis 6:14 says to make rooms in the ark. The Hebrew word used is kinim. It means nests, compartments, individual spaces. The radar showed exactly that. Rows of compartments, running the length of the structure, separated by what appeared to be walls. Skeptics argued it was a trick of the radar. Natural rock formations can create patterns. Erosion can carve channels that look man-made. But there was a problem with that argument. The pattern wasn't random. It was symmetrical, perfectly symmetrical, on both sides of the structure. Nature doesn't create perfect symmetry. Rivers don't carve identical channels. Erosion doesn't create mirror images. but builders do. When you construct a ship, you balance it. You make both sides equal. And you create symmetry so it floats properly. The Durupinar formation shows exactly this kind of balance. The left side mirrors the right. The compartments align. The walls match, as if someone designed it, as if someone built it, as if someone planned every detail. Genesis 6:15 gives exact dimensions. 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, 30 cubits high. That's a ratio of 30 to 5 to 3. Modern naval architects analyzed this ratio. They ran computer simulations. Yet they tested it against storms, against waves, against the worst conditions imaginable. The result? The biblical ratio is nearly perfect for stability. A ship built to those proportions would survive almost anything, including a global flood. But the internal structure was just the beginning. What researchers found in the walls themselves would change everything. Core samples were drilled from deep inside the formation. Scientists extracted material from the interior walls, a material that had been sealed for thousands of years. The samples were sent to multiple laboratories. Independent testing, no connection to religious organizations, no agenda. The results came back identical from each lab. The material contained petrified wood, not stone that looked like wood, actual wood. Organic material that had been transformed over millennia. The cellular structure was still visible under microscopes. Wood, inside a boat-shaped formation, on a mountainside in Turkey. But that's not what shocked the researchers most. The wood samples contained something else, something that shouldn't exist at that location, something that raised questions no one could answer. Mixed with the petrified wood were traces of animal hair, fossilized, ancient, preserved in the material like a time capsule. Hair from multiple species, different textures, different thicknesses, as if many different animals had lived in close proximity, in the same structure, at the same time. Our critics demanded explanations. How could animal hair be preserved for thousands of years? How could it survive inside rock? The answer lies in how petrification works. When organic material is buried quickly, minerals replace the original cells. The structure is preserved, frozen in time. A sudden burial, a catastrophic event, like a flood. The hair wasn't the only organic material found. Researchers also discovered traces of ancient dung, fossilized waste, the kind produced by large mammals, inside the formation, mixed with the wood, sealed in the walls, as if animals had lived there, eaten there, produced waste there for a long period of time. Still skeptical? The next discovery would silence even the loudest critics, at least temporarily. In 2019, a research team used advanced 3D imaging to map the entire formation. They created a digital model. Every curve, every chamber, every anomaly. When they analyzed the data, they found something remarkable. A door, not just an opening, a deliberate, constructed doorway, located exactly where the Bible says it should be. Genesis 6:16 says God instructed Noah to put a door in the side of the ark. One door, in the side, not the top, not the bottom, the side. The 3D imaging revealed a distinct anomaly in the side of the formation. A rectangular space, larger than the other openings, positioned exactly where a door would be. The dimensions matched ancient doorways, large enough for animals to pass through, large enough for a family to enter. One door, just like the Bible says. But finding a door led to an even bigger question. If there was a door, what was behind it? What else was hidden inside? The deeper researchers looked, the more questions emerged. Anchor stones were discovered near the site, massive rocks with holes drilled through them, the kind used by ancient ships to stabilize during storms. And these stones had symbols carved into them, crosses. 8 crosses on several stones. 8, the exact number of people the Bible says were on the ark. Noah, his wife, his 3 sons, their 3 wives, 8 people. Coincidence? The stones were found scattered down the mountain, as if they had been cut loose, released, dropped as the ship settled into its final resting place. This matches how ancient sailors used anchor stones. They would release them when no longer needed, and leave them behind. And there they sat, for thousands of years, waiting to be discovered. The anchor stones pointed to something further up the mountain, something that connected all the pieces together. Researchers followed the trail, up the slope, toward the formation, and they found more. A stone structure, built from local rock, shaped like an altar near the Ark. Genesis 8:20 says that after the flood, Noah built an altar and offered sacrifices to God. The first thing he did when leaving the Ark. The stone structure sits within sight of the Durupinar formation. It's positioned exactly where you would build an altar, on high ground, facing the heavens. Inside the structure, researchers found ash, burnt residue, the remains of ancient fires. Animal bones were mixed with the ash. Burnt bones, sacrificed bones, clean animals. The kind the Bible says were acceptable for sacrifice. Every detail matches. Every discovery aligns. But we're far from finished. What comes next connects this ancient ship to something even more shocking, something that challenges everything science has taught us about history itself. Because inside that formation, buried in sediment that hasn't seen sunlight in millennia, researchers found bones. But not the kind of bones anyone expected. What we're about to discuss has divided scientists for years. It's controversial, it's shocking, and it might change how you see history forever. Remember those core samples? The ones taken from deep inside the Durupinar formation? Researchers found more than petrified wood, more than animal hair, more than ancient dung. They found bones, fossilized bones, massive bones, the kind that belonged to creatures we thought disappeared millions of years ago. Dinosaur bones. Let that sink in for a moment. Dinosaur fossils, found near the suspected remains of Noah's Ark, in sediment dating back only thousands of years, not millions. This discovery challenges everything: the established timeline, the evolutionary narrative, the accepted history of life on Earth. According to mainstream science, dinosaurs went extinct 65 million years ago. A massive asteroid, global devastation, every dinosaur wiped out, long before humans ever existed. But what if that timeline is wrong? What if dinosaurs and humans lived at the same time? What if they walked the same Earth, breathed the same air? What if some of them were on Noah's Ark? And sounds impossible, but the Bible might have been telling us this all along. We just weren't listening. Open the book of Job, chapter 40, verses 15 through 24. God is speaking directly to Job, describing a creature called Behemoth. Listen to the description. Look at Behemoth, which I made along with you, at the same time, coexisting. It eats grass like an ox. Look at the strength in its loins, at the power in its belly muscles. Its tail sways like a cedar tree. Stop right there. A tail like a cedar tree. Cedars are massive. They're thick. They're powerful. What animal today has a tail like a cedar? Elephants? No. Their tails are thin. Hippos? No. Small tails. Rhinos? Definitely not. But sauropod dinosaurs? Brachiosaurus? Apatosaurus? Massive tails. Thick as tree trunks. Exactly like cedar trees. The description continues, and it gets even more specific. Its bones are tubes of bronze. Its limbs like rods of iron. Bronze and iron. Metals. Symbols of incredible strength. Dinosaur bones are famously strong, dense, built to support creatures weighing tens of tons. It ranks first among the works of God. First, the greatest, the most impressive creature God made. This isn't describing an elephant or a hippo. This is describing something far more magnificent, something that would leave ancient humans speechless. A dinosaur. But Behemoth isn't the only mysterious creature in the Bible. There's another, even more terrifying. Job chapter 41 describes Leviathan. Can you pull in Leviathan with a fish hook? Can you tie down its tongue with a rope? This creature lives in water. It's massive, untamable. Its back has rows of shields tightly sealed together. Each is so close to the next that no air can pass between. Rows of shields, like armor. like scales. Its snorting throws out flashes of light. Its eyes are like rays of dawn. Flames stream from its mouth. Sparks of fire shoot out. Smoke pours from its nostrils. Fire from its mouth. A fire-breathing sea creature? Sounds like fantasy, unless you consider one possibility. Scientists have discovered beetles that spray boiling chemicals. Bombardier beetles. They mix compounds in their bodies that create explosive reactions. What if certain dinosaurs had similar abilities? What if they could produce combustible gases? Ignite them somehow? Sounds far-fetched, but we've only discovered a fraction of the dinosaur species that existed. We don't know everything about their biology. Ancient cultures around the world described dragons, fire-breathing reptiles, massive creatures with scales and terrible power, Chinese dragons, European dragons, Middle Eastern dragons, all separated by thousands of miles, different languages, different cultures, yet describing the same thing. Maybe they weren't describing myths. Maybe they were describing memories, real creatures, real encounters, passed down through generations. This brings us back to Noah's Ark, and a question that changes everything. Genesis 6:19 records God's command to Noah. You are to bring into the ark 2 of all living creatures, male and female, to keep them alive with you. All living creatures. Not some, not most, all. If dinosaurs existed when Noah lived, they would have been included. God wouldn't make exceptions. Every kind of animal, every species, 2 of each. But how? Dinosaurs were massive. How could they fit on a boat? The answer is simpler than you think, and it makes perfect sense. Noah didn't need adult dinosaurs. He needed young ones. Think about it. A baby sauropod is small, manageable. It would grow after the flood, reproduce, fill the earth again. God brought the animals to Noah. Genesis 7:9 says they came 2 by 2. God controlled which animals arrived. He would have sent young, unhealthy specimens, not fully grown giants. The ark had 3 decks, thousands of square feet, room for thousands of animals, including young dinosaurs. But if dinosaurs were on the ark, why aren't they around today? What happened to them? The world after the flood was different, dramatically different. Climate changed, the atmosphere changed, food sources changed. Many scientists believe an ice age followed the flood. Temperatures dropped, vegetation died. Large animals struggled to survive. Dinosaurs needed massive amounts of food, warm temperatures, specific conditions. Post-flood Earth couldn't provide that. Not anymore. They struggled. They declined. Eventually, they disappeared. Not from an asteroid 65 million years ago, from environmental collapse thousands of years ago. After the flood, the dinosaur fossils found near the Ark support this theory. But there's more evidence, much more, from cultures around the world. Ancient Mesopotamian carvings show creatures that look exactly like dinosaurs. Long necks, massive bodies, tails like trees, carved by people who supposedly lived millions of years after dinosaurs went extinct. How did they know what dinosaurs looked like? How did they carve such accurate images, unless they saw them? Unless dinosaurs still existed, unless the timeline is wrong. Stay with us, because what we're about to reveal goes even deeper. The fossil evidence, the biblical evidence. And that it all points to something bigger, something that connects to events happening right now. Dinosaurs weren't the only creatures excluded from our history books. There were others, far more dangerous, far more corrupt, and they weren't animals at all. Noah's Ark saved humanity. It preserved animal life. It allowed creation to continue after the flood destroyed everything. But there was one group that was deliberately left behind. One group that God refused to save. One group so corrupt, so dangerous, so evil that they had to be destroyed. The Nephilim. You may have heard the name. You may have seen it in movies or books. But the true story of the Nephilim is far more disturbing than any Hollywood version. And it begins with a single verse that has puzzled scholars for thousands of years. Genesis 6:4. Read it carefully, because what it describes sounds impossible. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward. Yet when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them, they were the heroes of old, men of renown, sons of God, daughters of humans, children between them. Who were these sons of God? Humans? No. The text separates them clearly. Sons of God, daughters of humans. Two different groups. Most biblical scholars agree. The sons of God were angels, heavenly beings, spiritual creatures who existed before humanity. But these weren't good angels. These were rebels. Us fallen ones, angels who abandoned their place in heaven, and they did something forbidden. They took human form. They came to earth. And they married human women. This wasn't romance. This was corruption, a violation of the natural order. Angels were never meant to reproduce with humans, but they did. And their offspring were the Nephilim, hybrid beings, part angel, part human, neither one nor the other. The Book of Enoch describes them in terrifying detail. Giants, 300 cubits tall. Some translations say 3,000 cubits. That's impossible, right? Exaggeration? Maybe. But even conservative estimates describe beings far larger than normal humans. Powerful, violent, uncontrollable. Genesis 6:4 calls them heroes of old, men of renown. But don't be fooled by that translation. The Hebrew word is gibber. It means mighty ones, warriors, tyrants, men of violence and power. These weren't heroes like we imagine. They weren't saving people. They weren't doing good. They were conquerors, destroyers. They dominated the ancient world through fear and brutality. Genesis 6:5 tells us what happened next. The Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become on the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was only evil all the time. Only evil all the time. The Nephilim had corrupted everything. Every thought, every action, every relationship. The entire human race was infected by their influence. Violence spread. Immorality spread. Wickedness that we can barely imagine. God saw it all, and he made a decision, the most devastating decision in human history. Genesis 6:7. God speaks, "I will wipe from the face of the earth the human race I have created, and with them the animals, the birds, and the creatures that move along the ground, for I regret that I have made them." Regret. God regretted creating humanity. That's how bad things had become. The Nephilim had pushed everything past the point of no return. But there was one exception, one man who stood apart. Genesis 6:9. Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked faithfully with God. Blameless. The Hebrew word is tamim. It means complete, whole, uncorrupted. Some scholars believe this goes beyond moral character. They believe Noah's bloodline was pure, untainted by Nephilim DNA. And the fallen angels had been corrupting human genetics for generations, mixing their seed with humanity, creating hybrids. But Noah's family line remained clean, uncontaminated, fully human. That's why God chose him. Not just because he was good, because he was genetically pure, the last hope for uncorrupted humanity. God gave Noah specific instructions. Build an ark, bring your family, bring the animals, and then, Genesis 7:16, then the Lord shut him in. God himself closed the door. Not Noah, God. Once that door closed, the decision was final. Everyone inside would be saved. Everyone outside would perish, including the Nephilim. There was no room for them on the ark, no invitation, no chance for survival. They had corrupted the world. They had spread violence and evil everywhere. And now they would face the consequences. If you're still watching, you're starting to see the bigger picture. The flood wasn't just about punishing bad behavior. It was about cleansing the earth of corruption that had infected humanity at a genetic level. But here's where it gets even more disturbing. Because the Nephilim story doesn't end with the flood. Numbers 13:33. hundreds of years after the flood. The Israelites are scouting the Promised Land, and they see something that terrifies them. We saw the Nephilim there. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them. Nephilim, after the flood. How is that possible? The flood killed everything, every living creature. How could the Nephilim have survived? Several theories exist. Some scholars believe the fallen angels returned. After the flood, they repeated their sin. They took human wives again. They produced new Nephilim offspring. Others believe the corruption survived through Noah's daughters-in-law. They were on the Ark. Their bloodlines might have carried dormant Nephilim genetics. The text doesn't tell us directly, but the result is clear. Giants appeared again. Goliath, the Anakim, the Rephaim, all described as descendants of the Nephilim, all appearing long after the flood should have wiped them out. The corruption was persistent, resilient, constantly trying to resurface. This raises a terrifying question, one that connects directly to our present day. Jesus warned us about the end times. He said something specific, something that most people overlook. Matthew 24:37. As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. As it was, so it will be. The same conditions, the same corruption, the same evil. If Nephilim activity characterized the days of Noah, what does that mean for the days before Jesus returns? Could it happen again? Could the corruption return? Are we seeing signs of it right now? We'll explore that question soon. But first, we need to examine another piece of evidence, another ancient event that confirms the flood actually happened. And it comes from a source that might surprise you. Skeptics have challenged the flood story for centuries. They call it myth, legend, impossible. A global flood? Water covering every mountain, every living creature destroyed? Science says it couldn't happen. There's not enough water on Earth. The physics don't work. The geology doesn't support it. Or so they claimed, until two scientists made a discovery that silenced the critics, at least for a moment. In 1996, two geologists from Columbia University did something remarkable. They found evidence of a catastrophic flood, exactly where ancient texts said it happened. William Ryan and Walter Pittman weren't looking for Noah's Ark. They weren't religious researchers. They were marine geologists studying the Black Sea. The Black Sea sits between Turkey, Russia, and Eastern Europe. It's massive, over 160,000 square miles, deeper than most seas on Earth. But it wasn't always that way. Ryan and Pittman drilled into the seafloor. They extracted core samples. They analyzed sediment layers going back thousands of years. What they found shocked the scientific community. Beneath the Black Sea, they discovered evidence of an ancient freshwater lake, a lake that existed before the sea, a lake that was catastrophically flooded. Around 7,000 years ago, something happened, something violent, something sudden. The Mediterranean Sea broke through a natural dam at the Bosphorus Strait. Billions of gallons of salt water rushed in. The force was unimaginable. Ryan and Pittman calculated the flow rate. Every day, enough water poured through to equal 200 Niagara Falls. Every single day. The flooding continued for months, maybe years. The water level rose 6 inches per day. Coastlines disappeared. Entire regions vanished underwater. The freshwater lake became a saltwater sea. The Black Sea we know today. But here's what makes this discovery remarkable. The timing matches the biblical flood, almost exactly. Most biblical scholars date Noah's flood to somewhere between 3000 and 5000 BC. The Black Sea flood? Around 5600 BC. Close enough to be the same event? Perhaps. Different cultures have different calendars, different methods of counting years. A few hundred years of difference could be explained by calculation errors over millennia. But the similarities don't stop at the date. Ryan and Pittman found something else. Something hidden beneath the waves. Evidence of human civilization. Using sonar technology, they mapped the bottom of the Black Sea. They found ancient shorelines, river valleys, plains that once held farms and villages. Then they found structures, rectangular formations, stone foundations, the remains of buildings, human settlements, underwater, buried for thousands of years. These weren't natural formations. These were homes, communities, evidence of people who lived before the flood, and they were found exactly where you would expect, along the ancient shoreline, in valleys that are now hundreds of feet underwater. The people who lived there had no warning. The water came too fast. They had to flee or die. Imagine it. You're a farmer. You live near a beautiful lake. Your family has lived there for generations. One day, you hear a rumbling sound. Yet the ground shakes, and then you see it. A wall of water rushing toward you, faster than you can run. You grab your family. You flee to higher ground. You watch everything you've ever known disappear beneath the waves. You survive, but your world is gone forever. And you tell the story to your children, to their children, for generations. A great flood, sent by the gods, destroying everything, sparing only those who escaped. This is where flood legends come from, not imagination. Memory. Every ancient culture has a flood story, every single one. The Sumerians called their flood hero Ziusudra. The Babylonians called him Utnapishtim. The Greeks called him Deucalion. The Hindus called him Manu. Different names, different details, same core story. A great flood, divine warning, one righteous man, a boat, survival, a new beginning, hundreds of cultures, separated by oceans, separated by thousands of miles, all telling the same basic story. Coincidence? Or collective memory? Skeptics say these stories spread through trade routes, cultural exchange. One myth copied by many cultures, but that doesn't explain everything. Native American tribes have flood stories. Australian Aboriginals have flood stories. Pacific Islanders have flood stories. These cultures had no contact with the Middle East, no trade routes, no cultural exchange. Yet they tell the same story. A great flood, a few survivors, a new world emerging from the waters. The only explanation? They all experienced it, or their ancestors did, and the memory survived. Think about what we've discovered so far. Archaeological evidence on Mount Ararat, dinosaur fossils that challenge the timeline, Nephilim corruption before the flood, and now scientific confirmation of a catastrophic ancient flood. The pieces are coming together, but we're not finished yet. Jan and Pittman's discovery created controversy. Some scientists embraced it, others attacked it. The debate continues today. Was the Black Sea flood a regional event, or evidence of something global? Some researchers argue it was local. Devastating, yes, but limited to one area. Others disagree. They point to geological evidence worldwide, flood deposits on every continent, marine fossils on mountaintops, sediment layers that suggest rapid water movement. The Himalayas have marine fossils, seashells at 20,000 feet. How did they get there? The Rocky Mountains have the same. The Andes, the Alps, every major mountain range. Mainstream science says these were ancient seabeds pushed up by tectonic activity over millions of years. But what if it happened faster? What if water covered those peaks? What if the mountains rose rapidly after the flood? The evidence is there. The debate is ongoing. But one thing is certain. Something catastrophic happened to this planet. Water reshaped the Earth. Civilizations were wiped out. The world we know today emerged from that devastation. Noah's Ark isn't just a story. It's a survival account, a record of how humanity made it through the worst disaster in history. And it happened because one man listened to God. One man built a boat. One man preserved life when everything else was destroyed. But how? How did Noah actually do it? How did 8 people care for thousands of animals for over a year? The logistics seem impossible, unless you understand how the Ark actually worked. Here's the question skeptics love to ask. How could 8 people take care of thousands of animals for over a year? It sounds impossible. Feeding them, watering them, cleaning up after them. Day after day, month after month, 8 people, thousands of animals, 1 boat. The math doesn't work. The logistics are overwhelming. It couldn't be done unless Noah planned for it. Unless the ark was designed specifically to make it possible. The Bible doesn't give us every detail, but it gives us enough. And when you combine scripture with ancient engineering knowledge, something remarkable emerges. First, let's talk about the animals. How many were actually on the ark? Skeptics throw out big numbers. Millions of species. Impossible to fit. But they're making a mistake. God didn't tell Noah to bring every species. He said every eid. The Hebrew word is min. It means a category, a type, a family of animals. Dogs, wolves, and coyotes, one kind. They can interbreed. Same genetic family. Lions, tigers, and leopards, one kind. Same family. Noah didn't need 2 of every species. He needed 2 of every kind. That's a much smaller number. Researchers have calculated the actual number. The answer might surprise you. Studies suggest there were roughly 6,700 animals on the ark. Some estimates go higher, some lower, but around 7,000 is a reasonable middle ground. That's manageable. Challenging, yes, but possible. The ark was massive. 450 feet long using the standard cubit, 515 feet using the royal cubit. 3 decks, over 100,000 square feet of floor space. That's larger than a football field. On each deck, room for animals, room for food storage, room for water collection, room for waste management. The ark wasn't a cramped lifeboat. It was a floating warehouse, designed for exactly this purpose. But space is only part of the equation. What about food? What about water? How did they keep everything alive? Water was crucial. Every animal needs it, every day. Without water, death comes quickly. The ark had one significant advantage: rain. For 40 days, water fell from the sky without stopping. The roof of the ark could have collected massive amounts of rainwater. Ancient ships used this technique. Sails and tarps directed water into barrels. Simple, effective. The ark's roof was enormous. Even a fraction of the rainfall would have filled storage containers quickly. But collection is only half the problem. Distribution is the other. How do you get water to thousands of animals? You can't carry buckets all day, not with only 8 people. Ancient engineers knew about pipes. Bamboo was used in Asia for water transport. Hollowed wood worked in other regions. A system of channels could have directed water throughout the ark. A gravity fed. From roof collection points down to animal compartments, each cage or enclosure could have had a simple water container. The kind farmers still use today. Fill it once. Animals drink as needed. Automated? No, but efficient. Designed to minimize daily labor. The same principle applies to food. Storing enough food for thousands of animals for over a year sounds impossible, but the solution is surprisingly simple. Most animals can survive on dried food, grains, hay, dried fruits, preserved vegetation. These foods are compact. They don't spoil quickly. They're easy to store in large quantities. The ark had enormous storage capacity. Entire sections could have been dedicated to food, organized by animal type, easily accessible. Feeding chutes could have connected storage areas to enclosures. Pour food in at the top. It slides down to the feeding trough. One person handles multiple animals. Not easy, but not impossible. We were uncovering how Noah actually survived this impossible journey. The engineering, the planning, the design. Every detail points to careful preparation. But we haven't addressed the biggest challenge yet, the one nobody wants to talk about. Waste. Thousands of animals produce enormous amounts of waste every single day. How did they handle it? This is where most skeptics think they've won the argument. The waste problem seems unsolvable. But ancient farmers knew how to manage animal waste. They'd been doing it for generations. Sloped floors, slatted surfaces, drainage channels. Waste falls through gaps in the floor. It collects in a lower area. It's removed periodically. The ark could have used similar systems. Enclosures designed with sloped floors. Waste sliding toward collection points. But where does it go after that? Some researchers propose a brilliant solution, something called a moon pool. Hey, a moon pool is an opening in the bottom of a ship. It connects to the water below, but because of air pressure and design, water doesn't flood in. The Ark could have had moon pools at the lowest deck. Waste could be pushed or washed into these openings. It would fall into the floodwaters below. The ocean becomes the disposal system. Endless capacity. No buildup inside the Ark. It's simple, it's elegant. It solves the biggest logistical problem. But waste removal is only half the sanitation equation. What about air? Thousands of animals breathing, waste gases building up. How did they keep the air clean? Genesis 6:16 mentions a window, an opening at the top of the Ark. But one window wouldn't provide enough ventilation, not for an enclosed space that large. Some researchers believe the roof had multiple openings, covered sections that could be raised or lowered, allowing air to flow through. The moon pools could have helped here too. Water moving up and down creates air pressure changes, like a giant bellows, pushing stale air out, pulling fresh air in, passive ventilation, no mechanical parts, just smart design. Every problem has a solution. Every challenge was anticipated. The Ark wasn't primitive, it was sophisticated. Noah had 120 years to prepare. Think about that. 120 years of planning, building, problem-solving, testing systems. God gave the overall design, but Noah worked out the details. He had more than a century to perfect everything. The Ark wasn't thrown together. It was engineered, carefully, methodically, with survival as the only goal. And it worked. 8 people, thousands of animals, over a year at sea, they all survived. The Ark saved life on Earth. But its significance goes far beyond ancient history. It points to something coming in the future. Though something Jesus specifically warned us about. Everything we've discussed leads to this moment. The Ark discovery, the dinosaur fossils, the Nephilim, the flood evidence, the engineering marvel that saved humanity. It's all fascinating. It all points to biblical truth. But here's what matters most. Jesus talked about Noah, directly, specifically, as a warning about the future, not the past, the future, our future. Matthew chapter 24. The disciples ask Jesus a question that believers have pondered for 2,000 years. Tell us, when will these things be, and what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? The disciples wanted to know when the end would come, when Jesus would return, what signs to look for. Jesus could have answered many ways. He could have given dates, timelines, specific events. Instead, he pointed to Noah. Matthew 24:37. Jesus speaks directly. As it was in the days of Noah, also it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. Read that again, slowly. As it was, so it will be. The conditions before the flood. The same conditions will exist before Jesus returns. Jesus wasn't making casual conversation. He was giving a prophecy, a specific warning about the end times. Whatever happened in Noah's days will happen again, before the end. So, what exactly happened in Noah's days? What were the conditions Jesus warned about? Genesis 6:5 gives us the first clue. If the Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become on the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was only evil all the time. Only evil, all the time. Not occasional sin, not periodic rebellion, constant, unrelenting wickedness. Every thought, every intention, every action, corrupted. The human heart had become completely dark. No light remained, no goodness survived. Genesis 6:11 adds more detail. The picture gets worse. Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight, and was full of violence. Corrupt, full of violence. The Hebrew word for corrupt is shachath. It means ruined, destroyed, spoiled beyond repair. The Hebrew word for violence is chamas. It means cruelty, injustice, wrongful harm. Society had completely broken down. Morality was gone. Violence ruled everything. Does any of this sound familiar? Look at our world today. What do you see? Violence fills our screens, our streets, our homes. Corruption infects governments, businesses, institutions we once trusted. Morality has become relative. What was wrong is now celebrated. What was right is now mocked. Every inclination of the human heart, only evil, all the time. We're not there yet. Not completely, but we're heading there, fast. Jesus continued his warning. Matthew 24:38-39. For in the days before the flood, people were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, up to the day Noah entered the ark. And they knew nothing about what would happen until the flood came and took them all away. Notice what Jesus emphasizes. Normal life, eating, drinking, getting married, carrying on as usual. Nothing wrong with those activities. People do them every day. But that's exactly the point. Life seemed normal, routine, predictable, right up until the moment everything changed. Noah spent 120 years building the ark. He warned people. He preached righteousness. 2 Peter 2:5 calls him a preacher of righteousness. For over a century, Noah told them what was coming. Judgment, destruction, a flood that would kill everyone. And they laughed. They mocked. They ignored him completely until the rain started. This is the pattern Jesus warned about. Life continuing normally. Warnings being ignored. People too distracted to notice the signs. And then sudden destruction. Without warning. Without escape. Are we seeing this pattern today? Think about our world right now. How many people are paying attention to biblical prophecy? Most people are distracted. Work, entertainment, social media, the endless scroll of daily life. They're eating, drinking, getting married, planning futures, building careers. Nothing wrong with any of that, unless it blinds you to what's coming. Jesus said people in Noah's day knew nothing about what would happen. They were clueless, willfully ignorant. They had 120 years of warnings, and they missed every single one. Matthew 24:39 ends with a chilling statement. The flood came and took them all away. That is how it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. Took them all away. Everyone outside the ark, gone. Not some, not most, all. And Jesus says his return will be the same. Sudden, complete, final. Those who are ready will be saved. Those who aren't will be left behind. But there's another layer to this prophecy. Something most people miss entirely. Remember the Nephilim, the hybrid offspring of fallen angels and human women? They characterized Noah's days. They filled the earth with violence. They corrupted humanity at a genetic level. Jesus said the end times would mirror Noah's days. Does that mean Nephilim activity will return? Will fallen angels once again interfere with humanity? Some scholars believe it's already happening. They point to strange phenomena, unexplained encounters, things that don't fit normal categories. We won't go deep into speculation, but consider this. If Jesus specifically referenced Noah's days, he meant all of it, not just the violence, not just the moral decay, everything, the corruption, the supernatural interference, the complete breakdown of natural order. Whatever made Noah's generation so wicked that God destroyed them, Jesus says it will happen again. There's one more detail, perhaps the most important one, the ark itself. Noah's ark was salvation, the only way to survive the flood. 8 people entered, 8 people survived. Everyone else perished. Jesus is our ark today, the only way to survive what's coming. John 14:6. Jesus said it clearly. I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. One door, one way, one salvation. Just like the ark. The parallels are too perfect to ignore. The warnings are too clear to miss. And the signs around us are too obvious to deny. The question is simple. Are we ready? Jesus told us to watch for signs. He gave us specific markers. Events that would signal his return was near. Not hidden clues, not secret codes, clear, observable signs. And when you look at our world today, those signs are everywhere. Let's start with a prophecy that seemed impossible for nearly 2,000 years, until 1948. Israel. For centuries, the Jewish people were scattered. No homeland. No nation. Dispersed across the globe. Prophets said they would return. Ezekiel 37 describes dry bones coming back to life. A dead nation resurrected. Impossible. No nation has ever been destroyed. Its people scattered for millennia and then restored, except Israel. In 1948, Israel became a nation again. Jews returned from every corner of the earth. The Hebrew language was revived. The prophecy was fulfilled. Jesus said in Matthew 24:32-34 to watch the fig tree. Or when its branches become tender, summer is near. Most scholars believe the fig tree represents Israel. When Israel is restored, the end is near. That happened in our lifetime, within living memory. But Israel's rebirth was just the beginning. Other prophecies are falling into place right now. Revelation 16:12, one of the strangest prophecies in the Bible. The sixth angel poured out his bowl on the great river Euphrates, and its water was dried up to prepare the way for the kings from the east. The Euphrates River, one of the oldest rivers in human history, flowing through Iraq and Syria, mentioned in Genesis as one of 4 rivers in Eden. For thousands of years, it flowed strong, uninterrupted, reliable. Until now, the Euphrates is drying up right now as you watch this video. Drought, dams, climate shifts. The causes are debated, but the result is undeniable. The river that has flowed since the beginning of recorded history is disappearing. Satellite images show it. News reports confirm it. The Euphrates is at historic lows. A prophecy written 2,000 years ago, happening today. Revelation 9:14-15 mentions something else about the Euphrates, something terrifying. Release the 4 angels who are bound at the great river Euphrates. And the 4 angels who had been kept ready for this very hour and day and month and year were released to kill 1/3 of mankind. 4 angels, bound at the Euphrates, waiting for a specific moment. When the river dries up, they're released, and 1/3 of humanity dies. The river is drying up right now. What happens next? We're watching prophecy unfold in real time. Events that seemed impossible are happening before our eyes. The Ark discovery, the Euphrates drying, Israel restored. The pieces are coming together faster than ever before. And there's more. Matthew 24:6-7. Jesus listed more signs. You will hear of wars and rumors of wars. Nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in various places. Wars, rumors of wars, nations against nations. Look at the headlines. Any day, any week. Conflict everywhere. Famines spreading, millions facing starvation, food systems failing, earthquakes increasing. More frequent, more intense. The earth itself groaning. Matthew 24:12. Another sign, perhaps the most visible one. Because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold. Wickedness increasing, love growing cold. People becoming callous, hardened, indifferent to suffering. Families breaking apart, communities fragmenting, trust disappearing. Exactly like Noah's days. Exactly what Jesus warned about. 2 Timothy 3:1-5. Paul adds even more detail about the last days. People will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, without love, unforgiving, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not lovers of the good, treacherous, rash, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God. Read that list again. Does it describe anyone you know? Does it describe our culture? Lovers of self, lovers of money, lovers of pleasure, boastful, proud, brutal, without self-control. Paul wrote this 2,000 years ago, but he described our generation perfectly. The signs are converging. Not slowly, rapidly, all at once. Israel restored, the Euphrates drying, wars spreading, morality collapsing, wickedness increasing, and Noah's Ark appearing, right when we need the reminder most. A reminder that God judges sin, a reminder that salvation exists, a reminder that time is running out. Every generation has wondered if they were living in the end times. But no generation has seen this many prophecies aligning at once. No generation has had this much evidence. The question isn't whether the signs are real. The question is what we do about them. We've covered a lot of ground. Archaeological discoveries, scientific evidence, biblical prophecy, ancient history colliding with modern events. But here's what we haven't told you yet. The part that ties everything together. The discovery on Mount Ararat isn't finished. Not even close. Researchers are planning new expeditions. Larger teams, better equipment, deeper excavations. The Turkish government has granted new permits. International scientists are joining the effort. Resources are being gathered. What they've found so far? Just the surface. Literally. The Durupinar formation goes deep. Hundreds of feet of sediment. Thousands of years of burial. Most of it unexplored. The petrified wood samples, the metal fragments, the animal remains. All came from shallow depths. What lies beneath hasn't been touched, hasn't been examined, hasn't been revealed. Yet, some researchers believe the most significant discoveries are still buried, waiting. Ancient texts mention items stored on the Ark, sacred objects, divine instructions, records of the pre-flood world. The Book of Jasher, referenced in the Bible itself, describes artifacts Noah preserved, knowledge from before the flood, technology we don't fully understand. Oh, could those items still exist? Buried inside the formation, preserved by the same process that petrified the wood? We don't know, but the possibility is tantalizing. And then there's the timing. Why now? Why is this discovery happening at this exact moment in history? Think about it. For thousands of years, the Ark remained hidden, buried, inaccessible. Explorers searched. They failed. The mountain kept its secrets. But in our generation, the technology exists. And the permits are granted. The discoveries are accelerating. The same generation that saw Israel restored. The same generation watching the Euphrates dry. The same generation seeing prophecy fulfilled daily. Coincidence? Jesus said to watch for signs. He said, when you see these things, look up. Your redemption is drawing near. Luke 21:28. His exact words. When these things begin to take place, stand up and lift up your heads, because your redemption is drawing near. Begin to take place. And not when they're finished. When they start. They've started. They're accelerating. And the Ark discovery might be the biggest sign of all. A physical reminder, emerging from the earth at exactly the right moment. God buried it for a reason, and He's revealing it for a reason. The same God who saved Noah through the Ark, the same God who promised judgment and delivered it, the same God who preserved one family while the world perished. He's reminding us, warning us, giving us one more chance. The door on the Ark was open for 120 years. Then God shut it, and everyone outside was lost. How long will the door stay open this time? Nobody knows. Matthew 24:36. Jesus was clear. But about that day or hour, no one knows. Not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. No one knows the day. No one knows the hour. But we can see the signs. We can watch the evidence pile up. We can recognize that time is running short. The Ark saved 8 people, only 8, out of an entire world population. Everyone else heard the warnings, saw Noah building, listened to his preaching, and they did nothing. They carried on with life until the rain started. By then, it was too late. The door was shut. No second chances. New excavations begin next year. The teams are assembled. The equipment is ready. They're going deeper than anyone has gone before. What will they find? On what secrets remain buried in that mountainside? More importantly, what will you do with what you already know? The door is still open, for now, but it won't stay open forever.